Remember back in the day when we actually used to refer to Grogu as Baby Yoda? It's really weird to think that at one point we actually thought this was like Yoda's child. That would mean Yoda would actually like get down and dirty and do the deed. I don't know if I want to ever picture Yoda doing any of that. Although he did always walk around with that like pimp cane, so I guess it's all coming together. Anyways, all jokes aside, in today's video, I thought we would take a look at even more knockoff action figures from Aliexpress. Today, we're going to be checking out the best Black Series knockoff action figures. And again, we're just going through listings. We're going through the reviews and just kind of, I just wanted to showcase some of the stuff that's available on the website. And a lot of this stuff is either pretty affordable compared to the original, or in other cases, these are action figures that have actually never been released from Hasbro. They're completely new. In some cases, they're obviously like retooled, or they're using older body molds, but they're characters, or at least versions of characters, that we have not yet received from Hasbro. And that's probably like the best knockoffs that you can receive, right? You don't just want the exact same figure with lower or lesser quality. In some cases, you want customs, or you want knockoffs that are kind of closer to customs, right? They're characters that we have not seen in action figure form from any original manufacturer, anybody that has the actual license. And I think that's probably the most enticing version of a knockoff. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to stay tuned, because we do upload pretty consistently. We ramble on about action figures, and if you find any value in that, make sure to stick around. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into some of these action figures. Now, I will say, be incredibly weary when it comes down to some of these listings, because they usually have multiple action figures on each individual listing. I guess eBay does that from time to time, but it's not as consistent. Usually people like to do listings for each and every single individual item or figure. The whole choosing the figure, you know, the whole drop down situation through like eBay and Amazon is just very, it's not incredibly rare, but it's not something that's consistent. Whereas in AliExpress, usually you'll have listings with like up to 10 different items or 10 different figures. The first figure that I noticed with this particular seller or this listing was the Captain Phasma Black Series action figure. And look, I'll be brutally honest with you guys. If I were to pick this figure up nowadays, I would be very cautious, because it makes no sense to buy a potential knockoff or a factory defect for a slightly discounted price. When I remember this figure, I actually picked her up for maybe like $5. But even if you're very careful and if you're smart about it, you should be able to pick her up for well under $10 or a little bit over $10. So why risk it with a knockoff figure when you can just get this the original one for a much lesser price point? It's a cool figure. I like it. I think it's slightly bigger than most Stormtroopers. I personally had high expectations for Captain Phasma. I thought she was gonna like just wreak havoc on the galaxy, and unfortunately she got absolutely wrecked in the film. But if you guys are interested, she's available on there as well. They also have the Han Solo disguised as a Stormtrooper Black Series action figure. Same thing, you can get a really good deal on this particular figure. Now, I'll be brutally honest with you guys, I haven't really kept up to date with the second or the third party market prices for this particular character, so I really don't know if this is a good deal, but I'm going to assume that it is, because it is an older figure, probably an older Stormtrooper body mold, I'm assuming. But you get that phenomenal Han Solo head sculpt. It's a good solid purchase, but honestly, you could probably pick up a much better, more intricate and detailed Han Solo head sculpt online, maybe like on eBay for a little bit more, and then just customize it and port it onto a normal Stormtrooper or the updated Stormtrooper body mold. I don't think it's cheaper or more available, but at least you'll get more quality for your purchase. And again, there's less risk. So the first two figures, I don't know if I would personally pick them up. I think there are better avenues and better options. Next up, they do have the Clone Sergeant, and I believe that's the Lieutenant with the red. I don't quote me on that. I can't keep track of all the clones. Sometimes it's just like, hey, this one's green, this one has a tiny little line of blue, and it's like a completely different clone. So it's really hard to keep track. But yeah, I think it's like a sergeant and then the lieutenant. And again, I'm going to assume that they're on the older body molds for these clones, which is okay. I mean, you're purchasing a very old figure. I will say this one is a little bit risky as well. These two figures, I think are up on the docket to be re-released. I'm not 100% sure if at least one of these was re-released in like a 2-pack, like a Target exclusive 2-pack or something like that. I could be mistaken, but if they haven't, I think Hasbro has those re-releases right around the corner. I think they're going to start to re-release all of the clones with that new clone body mold. And why wouldn't they? There's updates to it. It articulates better, it displays better, and you can kind of double dip with a lot of these characters because you already released them, you know, like 6-7 years ago, and you can do that again with some of the newer body molds. So as I said, you can either purchase these if you're really impatient, or if you are patient, I think that Hasbro will probably re-release this within the next couple of years at least. I also ran into this other listing that essentially has a bunch of key members from the 501st Legion, which, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to be the Legion that like accompanies Anakin when he's like murdering, you know, like tiny little Jedis. Yeah, it's pretty dark, but if you guys want to kind of flesh out the 501 Trooper display, this is a perfect opportunity for you. You have, for example, the ARF gunner, the ARF officer. You have a sergeant mixed in there, as well as just random phase 1 clone troopers, if I'm not mistaken, or it could be phase 2, but just a really cool opportunity to army build with these. I think they're a little bit cheaper than the originals, but there was a time obviously when you couldn't get the phase 2 clone troopers. I think those were just recently released by Hasbro, and those are roughly about, well, like 25 to 30 bucks if you get them retail, and you can get these a little bit cheaper. Now, it is worth mentioning, and I think I said this at the beginning of the video, I like it when these overseas knockoffs are not like true knockoffs. I guess they're still using knockoff body molds, and then the accessories are definitely not original, but they're not knockoffs in the sense that Hasbro has never released some of these. Like, I don't think they've ever done a sergeant. I don't think that they've ever done one of these ARF gunners, and so it's cool that they do this. It's almost kind of like a knockoff custom, or just a really cheap custom that you can buy overseas. In some cases, it looks like they're just using that 501 or maybe even that like clone pilot trooper body mold that they had a while ago, or the 501 trooper, the clone trooper. They're essentially just reusing that body mold and then just doing like a custom head sculpt, which is really cool. Like I said, at least it's something that Hasbro hasn't given us. And worst case scenario, if you don't like this, at least it's a new character for the display, or it's some custom fodder. You can use these body molds, customize them, maybe just get the accessories, or just use the helmet for another side project if you're into customizing. So the options are there, and I will say the prices are pretty affordable. I will say not as affordable as the Marvel Legends, because you do get some welcome deals here and there if you're creating a new account, or if this is your first offer or your first purchase. But even if it's like your second or third purchase, you can still get some pretty sweet deals, but they're really close to retail. They're really close to what Hasbro would release them at. So it's just a really interesting observation. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe there's a bigger opportunity with Marvel Legends action figures, whereas in the Black Series line maybe is a little bit limited, or it's harder to get their hands on the body molds. I'm not 100% sure exactly why this is the case, but the Marvel Legends are way more affordable. The Marvel Legends knockoffs, that is, compared to the Black Series, where usually you're paying closer to the retail price. I'm also going to assume that it's because a lot of these characters have some custom stuff done to them. It's not just like, here's the exact same version that, you know, Hasbro released with lesser quality. In some cases, it's like characters that we've never seen release from Hasbro. So just keep that in mind if you guys are interested in picking these up. And by the way, in case you guys are wondering, great ratings, great reviews all around. There are, you know, some outliers here. There are people complaining about maybe like this fell off or that fell off or this is loose, but you really get that with Hasbro as well. I mean, out of, you know, 100 Black Series action figures, I guarantee you, you know, like 5 of them just are completely useless, and then there's maybe like another 10 to 15 that have maybe a little loose joint or a little bit of paint rub here, or, you know, some minor little QC issues. So I don't think it's necessarily just because they're knockoffs. I think that's just in general, but for the most part, I would say like 95% of the customers that purchased these were pretty happy, like great reviews. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this listing. I'm not really going to get too deep into it because I don't really collect SH line, the SH line too much, but there are these quote-unquote SH Figuarts action figures. There's a Darth Vader, a Luke Skywalker, you have a clone in there, you have a Stormtrooper, essentially like two great army builders, and then two iconic characters. And I think most people that probably pick these up are mostly looking for the Stormtrooper and the Clone Trooper, what is it, the Sergeant or Lieutenant, whatever the case may be. But those two are great army builders if you want to just flesh out your display a little bit. Like if you have maybe one or two originals and then you want just around them just random stormtroopers in the background, you know, nothing too crazy, I think this is perfect for you. Or as I said, if you're just looking for custom fodder, if you want maybe one of these stormtroopers to add maybe a wash, maybe a little bit of battle damage, maybe a custom head sculpt, maybe a damage head sculpt, I don't know. The options are there if you guys are interested. I will say these ratings are a little bit closer to what I would expect. I think it's like close to like a 4-star review all around for these figures. There are some people that, you know, might have had some minor issues here and there, but at least the 2 or 3 US based reviewers or, you know, customers, for the most part, they said they were fine. You know, they showed some pictures off. They look okay. They don't look great. Obviously, they're not going to be what, you know, SH is doing, but it's pretty close. Now, I will say I would probably steer clear of the Darth Vader and the Luke, because those are iconic characters and those are kind of be, you know, like your main centerpiece for your display. Whereas in the Stormtroopers, you can kind of just throw them in the background. Like I said, add a little bit of a wash, add some dirt, some grind to some of these, make them look like they've been through stuff, and then you can just kind of throw them in the background, just kind of standing upright, not really doing much. Now, the welcome deal was for like a $10 to like $14-15 price point, but even without the welcome deal, according to at least to the listing, they're usually in the like low teens, so like $13 to $15 for these figures. As I said, probably not great, but if you want to try some of these out, if you want to test them out, you can do so now, and pretty affordable prices. I mean, worst case scenario, you pick one of these up, they're not to your liking, at least you can get some of those accessories, or it's, you know, a good learning lesson for the future to avoid these figures. There's also a listing for that Republic Commando RC-1207, I believe. I played the game like, I don't know, 15 years ago. I was a tiny little organism. I didn't have a mustache or anything. I don't really remember all of the characters from back then, but I know this was a Gaming Grades GameStop exclusive, and it has gone up astronomically high when it comes down to the price. I mean, I think this was originally like $27, somewhere around that price point. And I believe, I haven't checked it recently, but I know there was a time when this was like, you know, $60-80. I don't know if this is original. I'm going to assume that it's not. But you're still getting it for a very, very good price if you're interested in getting some of these Commando action figures. I know for the most part they were relatively successful, and they're essentially just repaints. You know, these Gaming Grades lines are usually just like a character that you already received, maybe like a K2SO or, you know, a random clone trooper or a random stormtrooper, but it usually comes with like an extra accessory or a slightly different paint job. But people seem to enjoy them, and this was one of them that kind of went out of stock pretty quickly. I will say it was available for quite some time. I maybe even saw it on sale for like $15 to $16, but as is always the case, it's, you know, it's out there, people have an opportunity to get it, and then once it sells out, everybody's trying to, you know, everybody's scrambling trying to get the figure. But this is a great option if you're not interested in paying the high third-party market prices. Now, obviously, the fan base for this particular figure is much smaller, so it's not going to have like an astronomically high number of sales, but the reviews are glowing for this particular figure, so that makes me believe that this may have a little bit more effort put into the quality. I think that's what I'm going to go with, because like I said, the reviews are glowing. They even have images, and anytime they have images, it just makes me believe the reviewer a little bit more. And a lot of these are US based, in case you guys are wondering. And then I also ran into this Gaming Grades Cal Kestis action figure. I'm not sure if this is sold out. I'm not sure if this is difficult to find in stores, but you can find it for well under $20. And this is, I believe, kind of like a deluxe offering, if I'm not mistaken. It was going for, I want to say like $30-something at GameStop. I do remember seeing it in person a couple of times, and we have received, I think, a number of different Cals. We even have it, I believe they even released the Star Wars vintage version. I've heard some pretty good things about the action figure. I personally, you know, I didn't really love the game. I thought it was okay, so I didn't really pick it up. But there are people out there that are diehard Cal Kestis fans, and this is right up your alley. Now, similar to the Commando Trooper that has very few reviews. This one kind of follows that trend, and I'm going to assume just because it just doesn't have that following, it doesn't have that huge fan base, and so there are only a few people interested in this particular figure. But like I said, if you're looking for the original, I'm going to assume that it's probably between like $50 to $60 at this point, because you know, at regular retail deluxe setting it was, you know, like 30 something. So this is a great option if you're interested in picking up this figure. And this is one of those characters that I do feel like has some potential in the future. I think him just existing in the video game, that just isn't enough. I think he made a Bad Batch appearance at one point from the animated series, so he's kind of had some crossovers, but I think it's only a matter of time before he gets like a really big live action opportunity. We've already seen some great characters make that transition into live action. We just saw Ahsoka, for example, so I think this is one of those prime candidates. So be patient if you're not interested in picking a knockoff. I do believe that Hasbro will eventually have something like this for us. So there you guys have it. I don't want to make this video too long. I don't want to ramble. I just wanted to kind of be a little bit more precise with this particular video. I've been having a lot of problems with that recently. I tend to ramble. I tend to kind of get off track, and I didn't want to do that in today's video. Kind of short, but, you know, sweet and simple. If you guys are interested in any of this stuff, go ahead and check out Aliexpress. All of this stuff is still available as of the moment of this recording. And hopefully you guys, you know, find some value. If you guys are interested in picking it up, they're almost all of them are very affordable. Some of them, not only are you getting just figures that are out of circulation or very difficult to find, but in other cases you're getting stuff that just doesn't exist anywhere else. You know, you would either have to wait for Hasbro to release them, or go to like eBay and find a custom for some of these, and those can get really, really expensive. I'm talking almost, you know, close to $100. So this is a really good option. And if there's any, you know, small little modifications you need to make to these figures, there are some great tutorials out there. You know, if like a joint is loose, or if a head sculpt needs, you know, maybe you need to prime something, or you need to shave down something on the helmet, or, you know, one of your hands is coming off, or, you know, things of that nature, you can usually go in there and just, you know, tweak those things yourself. And they're really cheap, affordable figures, so you don't have to worry too much if they're not like absolutely perfect. You know, if you need to kind of practice a little bit, these are perfect figures, especially if you're barely starting to get into customizing. But this is just my personal opinion. This is my personal take. I wanted to share this with you guys. Hopefully you guys find some value. If you guys enjoy just a bunch of random action figure nonsense, if you like listening to people just talk about action figures nonstop, this is a good channel for you guys. If you guys want or like this type of content, make sure to stick around. I'm not going to force anybody to like subscribe or comment. Just stick around if you guys enjoy this type of stuff. Make sure to stay safe out there, and as always, the most important part of all this is to enjoy the hobby. Pose your action figures, you know, like actually handle them, take pictures with them, enjoy them, because, you know, that's ultimately the main reason that we collect action figures, right? I hope so. Anyways, stay safe out there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.